DayZ is a game that lives and dies by the quality of its maps, by the impact of its world building. But Chernarus has a huge problem, and it probably needs to be addressed. So let's talk about it. If you like the video, please leave a like or a subscribe. It really helps me out. But without further ado, let's get into the video.
You can have it. I was just checking that you... Okay.
So let's start off with a bit of positive before we get to the negative. Chernarus is absolutely the most well-balanced map I've ever played on DayZ, and it's not even close. The loot distribution, the player distribution, the base locations, points of interest, villages, everything is extremely well placed. Whereas if you take a map, for example, like Livonia isn't as well balanced. There's a lot of people in the north and then not many people down south. Yes, they've added some changes recently to try and get more people to explore wider areas around the map, for example a bunker, but people who love Livonia because it sort of forces them to live off the land. And although that was a consequence of an underdeveloped map at the time of release, it still turned out to work in Livonia's favour, but it's still unbalanced. And then you've got Sakal. Sakal is the newest map, and Sakal has a lot going for it. It's actually the map I play the most of when I'm not recording content. It's my personal favourite map, and the balancing continues to improve, but it's not there yet. But this is the part of the video where the tone slightly shifts, because if you look at both Livonia and Sakal, they offer something that Chernarus doesn't and never did, and it's pretty big, especially as a player. Okay, so let's start with Livonia and something that completely sets it apart from Chernarus, and something Chernarus needs to borrow from heavily. The worlds themselves, they feel lived in. They don't feel like gaming worlds, they feel like worlds that were at the breaking point. You can see the struggle, the turmoil, the battles that occurred here. All this environmental storytelling paints a picture. You don't have to be there at the time these things happened to know just exactly what happened at the time. Barricades around the police stations, lots of military bases set up, especially around the bridges, signs of evacuation and struggle. They suggest a time where society was falling apart and the government were doing everything they could to possibly keep it together and to manage this outbreak. Livonia was hit hard and it was hit fast, and there's signs of this struggle throughout the entire map. It's a world that was lived in. It's a world that existed. It's not just a world that we're thrown into to survive. And when you compare all of this to Chernarus, you start to feel that Chernarus is a bit left behind. It's a bit boring compared. It's still an incredible map, but it's just missing that lived in feel. It just is empty. But Sakal stepped it up even further. Sakal didn't just give a world that went through struggle, but it also showed you a world that you could move in tomorrow and live amongst its people. The amount of research and key details here that went into this map are astonishing. This was an island that relied heavily on fishing. There are lots of coastal towns because being inland wasn't productive. To live inland would just create problems. All the jobs would have been around the coast, and you can see that. You can see the people going to work. You can see them waking up in the morning. You can see how they got there. You can see the equipment they took. You can see what was needed. The patched up fences, the tractors jammed under tarps to try and protect them from the weather. These houses didn't just feel lived in, they felt passed down generation to generation. This was a society of fishmongers. The checkpoints, the military areas, the bunkers, the fact that the peninsula was so heavily guarded by the military because it was the easiest point to defend. This world shows that these civilians had to live side by side with the military far beyond any outbreak ever occurring. And given what we know about the attitudes of these type of military bases, especially in these secluded areas, chances are that the relationship between the military and the civilians wasn't great. So the residents not only had to contend with the weather, the shortage of food when it was a bad season, but also the oppression from the military, who probably didn't even pay for the food they took. And given the paucity of police stations on the island, it's possible that the military acted like the law meant too, which again, based on what we know, probably wasn't good for them. But we know all this not from anything that's ever written down, because DayZ haven't written a word of this out in the public. We know this simply from how it's designed, and it goes even further. Even the inside of buildings show and highlight the struggle that these citizens had to endure when this outbreak occurred. It shows a lifestyle, it shows a culture, and when the disaster hit, it shows the buses they tried to evacuate on around the airport. It all comes together seamlessly. Sakal stands out in such a unique way. You know exactly who lived here and what they did. So although the loot economy might not be as well balanced as Chernarus in terms of what it offers, it is miles ahead. And yeah, Chernarus came from a mod, so it was never technically supposed to be DayZ. It was always supposed to be armor, and for armor it was incredible, but for DayZ, with the world, with the lore, with how it's progressed over the years, it has sort of left Chernarus behind. You know the story I just made up about all the citizens, all the things you can tell through Sakal? Well, you can't tell a single thing through Chernarus. You don't know who lived there, you don't know their personalities, you don't know where they worked, what they did. Yeah, there's factories and their farms, but they all sort of blend together. They don't tell a story, they don't paint a picture. You know it's European, but other than that, there's not really a lot going on, and it's never been updated. But we don't even have to compare Chernarus to these two maps to see how much it sort of lacks right now. A couple of years ago, Chernarus had an update on the Northwest Airfield, and if you look at how well balanced it is now compared to what it was, you can see just how much potential this map has to grow even further. It now actually feels like what it's supposed to be, and that's what it needs. It needs more chaos, it needs more destruction, it needs more people have died. We have a plane in the side of a building and that's about it, which is cool, and we have a few checkpoints and we have some things here and there, but nothing really stands out, nothing pushes it, nothing paints a realistic world. Whereas the modern team in DayZ has done exactly that. They haven't just created a new map, they established an entire world. So when you jump on Sakal and you play it for a few months, when you jump in Livonia and you play that for a few months, and then go back to Chernarus, Chernarus is great. It's one of the greatest maps. It just isn't one of the best designed maps aesthetically. You don't always feel like you're jumping into a world of chaos and destruction. You feel like you're just jumping into the game, DayZ, which is great, but compared to the other maps, it could definitely do with improvement. But what would you improve? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Am I a moron? I mean, I suppose you can agree with me and I can be a moron, but either way, for more content, click this video here, or for something else, click here. And as always, till next time.